You got your spell.
Hey guys, welcome back. Sports with Mono and Mono. It's October 7th, 2019. Here with my partner who's back from his assignment,
That is
Steve.
correct. I am back with the assignment. It was finished, and I got an A plus on my grade.
Why don't you tell them what your assignment was? actually?
Well, we're trying to get exposure for our show, so I want to thank Mitch Wilson for inviting me as a guest on Pick Dogs. And basically, what Mitch does is handicap the NFL and college football, and really any sporting event, baseball, hockey, basketball, you name it. And I've been appearing on his show. I'm on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sunday. Really at 11 in the morning on Sundays, we do our NFL preview. And I want to thank Mitch once again. It's given Sports with Mono and Mono some exposure. And, we look forward to a nice, healthy, partnership with Mitch going forward.
Good.
And, I wanted to thank him once again, but I'm glad to be back with my brother Jim. And let's get rocking. Let's talk what's going on in sports.
All right. So listen, before we start, we're going to start with the NFL. We got a lot of feedback that I actually led with Major League Baseball a couple of weeks ago, and that wasn't what our audience was looking for, although we're going to get to Major League Baseball, but we're going to start off with the NFL.
Dun, dun, dun.
Lambeau Field.
That is correct.
And this is sponsored by Coriano Trucking Incorporated from West Haverstraw, New York. And again, a shout out and thank you to Guy for sponsoring our show.
Thanks, Guy.
So listen, let's jump right into the NFL. I mean, I'm sitting here with a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, and it was the big game, the marquee game, I think, yesterday. It was the Packers and the Cowboys, and it was in Jerry's world.
Yes.
Right? I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. I mean, the Packers really took it to them. The game ended up being kind of close. They came back in the third quarter, but it really was never in doubt.
No.
But wow, I mean, what do you think of that? What's your takeaway from that?
And again, as I mentioned about Pick Dogs on the preview show with Mitch, the Packers have won seven out of the last 8 contests against the Cowboys. And of course, everybody knows Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago with the big pass to, crush the Cowboys in the playoffs. Also, Aaron Rodgers won his Super Bowl, his one and only Super Bowl at Jerry World. And I actually favored the Cowboys yesterday. I just thought revenge might have been on their mind, and after laying kind of an egg against the Saints and not really scoring much, and the week before Elliott only had 35 yards. It was a tough night for Prescott against the Saints, and I was disappointed, to be honest. The Pack really took it to them. They went up big, but the Cowboys fought back. I think that the deficit was way too much, even though they came back, meaning kind of making it somewhat compelling, maybe early fourth quarter.
Right, but out of the Packers game, this kid Jones scores 4 touchdowns for the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers did not throw a touchdown pass.
That was an interesting fact.
And they put up a lot of points anyway.
Jones is on the radar. I mean, 4 touchdowns by any NFL player, you're going to get notoriety.
Yep.
But, Dak threw for 400-something yards, but I think it was misleading. Again, Elliott really didn't shine too much, meaning the vaunted offensive line of the Cowboys, and you're expecting the formula of Zeke running for $130, Dak being efficient. Listen, Amari Cooper, he's good. This kid Michael Gallup, though, I want our audience to really...
He's good, too.
No, he's a second-round pick last year. I've been high on him. He's got wheels. He's got hands. Look for him to actually become a really prominent member of the Cowboys passing game.
Especially when Amari Cooper gets hurt and takes the rest of the season off.
I'm not as low on Amari Cooper as you may be. I think he's a good professional wide receiver. Obviously, upgraded the receiving core.
I didn't think he was worth a number 1 pick.
I do. I disagree. I absolutely do. But the point is, the Pack came in, did their business. Pack are off to a good start. They were kind of one of the teams that going into the season, I don't think a lot of people were buying pack stock. They got the new coach, Matt LaFleur.
I wanted to ask you about that because it was a little controversy, like him and Rodgers weren't getting along, and I said that's ridiculous because they wouldn't have hired him if Rodgers didn't sign off on
And
this.
that's absolutely true. I just
Right.
think training camp, there's really not a lot of news, and I think that was more smoke than fire there. The Pack are off to
Right.
a good start. I can't tell our audience right now, hey, buy Pack stock right now that they're going to contend, and be in the NFC Championship game. But they're off to a good start. The Cowboys, on the other hand, are 3-2. Two kind of poor performances. It's a long season.
Yep.
The division stinks. The Eagles are 3-2. And let's transition right to that. Let's talk about the Jets maybe because they stink. They stink, and the Eagles are 3-2. So really, the NFC is going to come down to the Eagles, Cowboys.
And it's so funny to me that every start of the season and they signed C.J. Mosley, and I know he's been out and so forth, but like the Jets are going to be competitive. And when you look at the first 4 weeks of the season, I know they're missing their starting quarterback, who you love. I'm still not sold on Sam Darnold yet, but unbelievable to give up 10 sacks, even to a rookie quarterback.
But the
I
bottom
mean, what does
line,
that tell you about their offensive line?
it means that the offensive line hasn't improved in 3-4 years, right? You and I were thought maybe Nick Mangold might have been one of the most overrated centers.
I still contend that.
Okay, but he was serviceable, right?
Okay.
So when the Jets were competitive, they had, they brought in an Alan Faneca, late in his career, but still a very serviceable offensive lineman. The Jets' offensive line stinks. They're trying to upgrade it. I get that. Is Sam Darnold the answer? I like Darnold. I like his potential. I'll leave it at that. But the bottom line is if you're going to go into Philadelphia, Adam Gase, they're coming off a bye week. You got Luke Falk. Listen, the kid had a good career at Washington State, but let's be real, he's a third-string quarterback. And the Jets really don't have any weapons. So the fact of the matter is, C.J. Mosley's out. You're handing the ball to Le'Veon Bell, and I don't care if you're Earl Campbell, Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Jim Brown.
Nobody runs with
Nobody's
that
going to
offensive
run.
line.
I think he had at least 15 to 16 carries for 40-something yards.
43 yards.
And then you got a kid quarterback, throwing some picks, fumbling.
And I got to tell you, I couldn't be happier. I would love to see Le'Veon Bell have the worst year of his career after all he's pulled and the holdout and so forth. But he's running behind an offensive line that's not even high school football
Well, listen,
level.
the Jets are going to be in contention for it once again. A top 5 pick. The Jets are just.
The Jets.
Can I throw
They're the
Adam
Jets.
Gase under the bus? No. Listen, you got to, as Bill Parcells would always say, you got to stock your groceries, right? The Jets. Listen, they made some good signings. We talked about Bell, Mosley, etc. They got Darnold in place. They are obviously a work in progress. So, Jet fans, it's just going to be lucky if you get out of Dodge with 3 wins this year. Be happy once again in April with the 4th or 5th selection the New York Jets select, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
And then across the river, or in the same stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Listen, Daniel Jones, let's talk about him.
Okay.
You and I missed the show last week, and the kid couldn't have gotten off to a better start his first 2 weeks. But going into this Viking game, I thought that he was going to get a dose of reality, meaning the Vikings got a really good defense.
Absolutely, they got a good. I'm not under any disillusions about whether or not he's going to run the table for the Giants.
No, and I don't even mean that. I just mean it's a welcome to the NFL moment. But this kid is really, for all the naysayers, and again, I'll give you credit at the number 6 pick. I still thought he'd be there at 17. However, he is the future.
Yes, he is.
And you can obviously see the stark difference in the 38-year-old Eli Manning against I would assume
22 years old?
Yeah, 22, 23. But you just see the athleticism. He's making the throws. He can make a deep throw. He's got pocket mobility, which is nice.
And he can run the ball.
So I think the Giant fans, and again, now listen, I don't want to get ahead of myself here.
let me stop here.
Week 3. Okay,
Exactly.
let's be real. I'll let you talk.
Let me stop you there because exactly that. I don't expect this kid to be the rookie of the year because he doesn't have a big supporting cast around him. The defense is going to give up a lot of points.
And Saquon's hurt too.
But I just like his composure. I like his attitude, and I like the fact that he's mobile and can make decisions on the fly. And that's what I saw, and that's why I was all on board with the draft pick. I like this kid. He's from Duke.
Yeah.
And he's going to handle himself brilliantly with the media. But we're not, if we win 7, 8 games, if we go 8-8, I consider that a successful year for the Giants.
I think the Giants would too. But to your point, he definitely seems like he possesses all the intangibles you want.
I do. I love it.
And again, the Giants. Listen, the Vikings are a better team. I thought it was
No question.
played out the way that I kind of thought it would.
Absolutely, they're a better team, and that Dalvin Cook really impressed me because you don't get to see the Vikings play on TV a lot,
Right.
but he is a beast.
Right. He's out of Florida State. I want to say this is his 3rd year. He was hurt last year.
I know he
had a
missed
knee
the
injury
whole
last year.
full season. Yeah.
However, with Kirk Cousins, am I going to say the Vikings? The Vikings should be a playoff team. Don't get me wrong.
Well, they can certainly compete against the Bears and the Packers in that division.
Well, it's a black and blue division.
But what's the trump card there? It's got to be Kirk Cousins. We've been waiting for this kid.
Yeah.
He's making tons of dough, and I like him. At times he looks great, and at times he doesn't look great, and that's what you.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Kirk Cousins because I want to transition to. Breaking news today. I'm sure our audience probably heard. Where did Kirk Cousins come from? The Washington Redskins. And what did the Redskins do this morning?
Fired their coach.
They finally fired their coach, Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden was hired in 2014. This is his 5th year. And actually, Jay Gruden has lost 49 games. And, he's done as of this morning. But the point is, I wanted to bring up, you and I have been talking about these salaries, right, for the NFL quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, we talked about right now, is leading the pack right now in paydays. Prescott, we talked about, is on the verge of signing an extension. But the point is, for stability in Washington, their big thing was they didn't want to pay Kirk Cousins. And this is, his 2nd year with the Vikings. So
right, but
they franchised him 2 or at least 2 or 3 years. However, the price tag was $28 million. And I think they probably are looking themselves in the mirror and saying, what were we thinking?
Yeah, but you know what? Let's take a half a step back because that decision not to pay him, and I've always been a fan of Alex Smith. I thought he was underrated in San Francisco. I loved his talent. And I thought that was a great move. It sounded shocking at the time that they're going to let Cousins walk and bring Alex Smith in. I loved it. I thought he was a great quarterback, and now his career is done. So now Gruden is faced with what? Case Keenum again?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do we got to see Case Keenum in a uniform different than the one the year before?
Right, but here's the difference too. During the draft, we talked about Haskins at Ohio State, who really only played 14 games. And on our draft preview show, I was a little bit higher on Haskins than you were. And I thought, and a lot of the, scuttlebutt out there was that the Giants, if they were going to pick a quarterback at 6, it might have been Haskins.
Oh, like it was a done deal.
So, ironically, he gets his debut last week against the Giants, throws picks and looks like deer in the headlights. And Bruce Allen, the president of the Redskins, and their owner is, he's got all the money in the world. But I tell you what, man, the Redskins have not been good in a long time. But here's my point. Jay Gruden, to his credit, is saying Haskins is not ready. Because they didn't name him the starter this week against the Patriots. Why wouldn't they do that unless Gruden thought He was not ready.
Well, obviously we saw that he wasn't ready.
That's
You know.
exactly my point.
But what did they think they were going to do with Case Keenum? I mean, that was the preparation.
Well,
they
he
didn't
was
do
the
before
bridge
the
to this
season.
kid, thinking, listen. So everybody mocked the Daniel Jones
Right,
pick.
but you need a mentor for your number one pick quarterback,
Right.
who's proven himself to be successful in this league.
Are
And
you
that wasn't
telling
it.
me Colt McCoy is not his mentor? Who they started yesterday over the kid that they just drafted.
Exactly.
Number 12, I think, overall.
Hey,
if I'm
look,
mistaken.
I'm not saying, I mean, I like Colt McCoy. He was great
I
at
am not
Texas,
knocking Colt McCoy.
And
He's
he's
a
got-
serviceable backup.
and he's got some wins in this league.
I got
mean,
it.
I actually think he's better than Case Keenum. So,
But
those
my-
are the decisions that I think Jay Gruden made. But now you're saying that the decisions came from upstairs in the booth?
No,
as
my
opposed to that?
point is, Jay Gruden is looking at Dwayne Haskins and saying he ain't ready to play. Okay?
Okay.
So Daniel Jones, who everybody was breaking chops on, is now just had his third career start, right? And has looked a hell of a lot better than Dwayne Haskins. So the point is, don't be surprised. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just throwing it out there that it might be like the Cardinals situation where they took Josh Rosen number one, and then the year after they just drafted Kyler Murray. So my only point is buyer beware on Haskins, meaning, and I'm not knocking the kid. He just may not be ready. But the thing is, Washington is, I don't know how they're going to fix their situation.
No,
they
got a
just
lot of-
haven't been relevant in a
No.
long time. And listen, I don't see them righting the ship anytime
No,
soon.
they got a lot of fixing to do. I know their left tackle is holding out. He's not coming back. And,
Okay, yeah.
But
But
I mean-
the point is, Gruden's been there 5 years. Okay, it's time for a change. Don't get me wrong. But any Washington Redskin fans listening, I think they really. I don't know where the light at the end of the tunnel is for the Washington Redskins. So.
yeah.
So what are your other thoughts on Sunday?
Well, there was one interesting thing. You got to tip your hat to the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they went into Kansas City,
Yep.
and listen, they're facing the best quarterback in the
Yep.
league. There's no question about it. But
They were an 11-point underdog going into that game,
exactly,
and they're playing at Kansas City.
And I don't know a football fan in the country that didn't think that Kansas City was going to run them out of Kansas City.
You're talking to your host who actually took the Indianapolis Colts last night.
Okay.
And the only reason I did is I actually thought the Chiefs would obviously win.
Well, then
But
you
it was
win
a-
the 50-50
But
at
it was
halftime.
no, listen, it was an 11-point spread. So what the Colts did last night, and I want to tout this guy. We talked before the show, and listen, Zach Martin on the Cowboys, who's for the last 3-4 years is considered probably one of the top guards in the league.
I would consider him that.
But this Quentin, I want our audience to start remembering Quentin Nelson, who is the guard on the Indianapolis Colts. He was the Colts' #1 draft pick out of Notre Dame last year.
Yep.
He has just solidified himself as probably the best offensive lineman in the league.
After 5 games?
No, this is his second year. This is his second year.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so what you saw last night was the formula to try and beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs is the ground game. Keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So the Colts were able to rush the ball last night. Jacoby Brissett managed the game. Frank Reich is the coach of the Colts. Colts are not a bad team, man.
They're not a bad team.
They
were
are not.
Very
So they're kind of
formidable team.
underrated. So that's kind of the point I wanted to bring up.
And I think Jacoby Brissett is really holding his own. And
No doubt.
very similar to what you brought up. And I told you I wasn't a buyer of this guy Bridgewater carrying New Orleans during Breeze's absence, but
I was.
I know. I'm tipping my hat over
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. I think Teddy Bridgewater is an efficient quarterback. Unfortunately, the kid had a knee injury, but he was good at Louisville, man.
I know he was a good college player, and
Yeah.
that's different. But the New Orleans
But he's
Saints,
never got the chance to start.
he was the
really.
starting quarterback for the Vikings.
And then he got hurt like that.
Okay,
That's
but-
my point. That's why they got Kirk Cousins.
But
'cause
I'm
Teddy
still
Bridgewater
I'm
got
gonna
hurt.
hold out the jury on this one because I still think the Saints are like the Chiefs. They're loaded. They got a lot of weapons besides that besides Drew Brees, and I think they got enough weapons. This Michael Thomas,
Oh.
we talked about it.
We did.
You know what? I was a little shocked, and we talked about this. I said, this guy's holding out. He's only his third year in the league. He's pretty good. I
Oh,
like
he's
him
very
a lot.
good. And he
But
got
they're
the-
loaded.
Yeah.
So let's not put this all on Teddy Bridgewater right now.
No, I'm not saying
We'll
that.
come
My
back to
point is,
this.
I think Teddy Bridgewater is a good backup quarterback. Brees
Okay.
is going to be back probably in 3-4 weeks.
Well,
and
look,
then
he's
Teddy-
3-0, so
and
I
Teddy
can't.
goes to the bench.
I
mean,
can't dismiss it. I mean, of course he's going back to the bench.
Right, but
Yeah.
listen, Teddy threw for 304 touchdowns yesterday. So listen, a lot of teams have a lot of worse problems than the Saints having Teddy Bridgewater being their quarterback to bridge the gap. That's my point.
All right, so listen, let's almost wrap up, because there's one thing I want to mention after tonight's Monday night's game. It's San Francisco and
the
Cleveland,
Browns, right?
and now we've talked about this before. I am not a complete buyer of the Cleveland Browns, right? Everyone had them winning the division and all this kind of stuff. I just think, I just don't think they're ready to take that next step out of the dungeon. I just don't. But I'm not completely sold on San Francisco and this Garoppolo
But they're
yet.
undefeated, San Francisco.
Of course
They're
they're
off to a real good
undefeated and
start.
they're home.
Right.
So I'm going to go out and again, you know my feelings on point spreads and so forth, and I don't do that.
Yeah.
I like the Cleveland Browns tonight to upset and knock San Francisco out of the unbeaten ranks tonight.
You like the Browns tonight?
I do.
Let me see. So obviously, I think Cleveland should win the division. I know it's early. However, I don't like what I see from Cleveland, even with all their groceries being loaded into their cupboard. Baker Mayfield, I'm a fan of him.
I am too.
Listen, he had a good rookie year, etc. Until he gets out of his own way. He's been holding the ball way too long, and he just hasn't been efficient. His quarterback rating is in the toilet, and I think he's kind of the reason that the Browns are off to, their 1-2 start, if you will. However, that division, the Steelers losing to the Ravens yesterday, right? I think that division could be an 8-8, 9-7 wins the division.
With
type
the
of thing.
Ravens, the Ravens are going to win 12 games.
Right? The Ravens are off to a good start.
Lamar Jackson's probably going to be the MVP of this.
Well, he had an okay game yesterday. He didn't have the two first games.
You can't have 16 great games.
I'm not saying that he's going to.
But I'm more and more impressed with him as time goes by, and we've talked about it. I love John Harbaugh as a coach.
I'll give the Ravens, to your point, I would say they'll probably finish 10-6. So that means the Cleveland Browns better pick up the pace, and if they want a division, it's got to be 11-5.
I'm going to put the Ravens at 12-4. I don't think the Browns, even if they come in at 10-6, it's not going to be enough.
No, and then they're going to scramble for a wild card. And if the Cleveland Browns don't make the playoffs this year, it's a major disappointment. And I don't care that it's Freddie Kitchens' first year as a head coach. But my point is Baker Mayfield better start playing a hell of a lot better.
I got it.
That's my point.
I agree. But I think tonight may be a turnaround game, and I'm taking. I don't even know what the line is, and I don't care about the line.
Right.
And they're on the road.
Yeah.
But I like them to knock off San Francisco tonight.
I kind of like Cleveland tonight to rebound, even though they're on the road. I'd be kind of disappointed if Baker doesn't perform well on national TV. tonight.
He's missing Jarvis Landry, I think.
And if they go to 1-3, then again, this is Cleveland we're talking about.
Well, they have a tie already too, aren't they? No, they don't have it. It
No.
was Detroit and somebody.
Cardinals.
Yeah,
Cardinals and Detroit had the tie in week 1. So we'll see what happens tonight. So that's really it on the NFL right
Except-
now. Is there one more thing?
There is one more thing, and this is a subject that I brought up, and Steve and I have talked about for forever, and it's a Hall of Fame thing in the NFL, and you guys know my feelings that Howie Long doesn't belong and Warren Sapp doesn't belong, but Joe Klecko and I'm gonna throw a shout out to my friend Mike Garvey down in Naples, Florida.
Mike Garvey, one of our loyal listeners.
Very loyal listener.
Yes, thank
and
you,
he
Mike.
sent me this YouTube clip of some 2-minute Joe Klecko thing, and it blew me away. It was so great, and they had a lot of NFL guys. There was one guy throwing him accolades that it just kind of turned me off. It was Howie Long.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Joe Klecko this. I said, yeah, well, you're in the Hall of Fame. He's not, and that's an injustice. But the footage of him, and I keep telling people, the only player to make the Pro Bowl in 3 different positions, and I just hope that he gets his due this year.
Well,
And I know he's not even on the ballot, but I told you the NFL is doing this thing.
that's
It's the
what I was
100th
leading up to,
anniversary.
right.
But if they want to keep this guy out, then I don't want
Then
anything
you and
to do.
I are getting in a car and we're driving to Canton and we're getting our little fence post and we're putting a white sign and we're going to say Joe Klecko and we're going to walk around and we're going to protest until he gets in.
Exactly. I just wanted to bring that up because the YouTube thing.
And all our audience members, you're more than welcome to come on the road trip, those that are Joe Klecko fans. And listen, we would love to hear your opinion, right? So send us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com.
Yep.
But on this show, Joe Klecko absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? Joe is, what would you peg him? In his early maybe late 50s, 60s?
I'm going to say 58, 9.
Something like that. But the point is, we don't want somebody like a Joe Klecko to unfortunately pass before he gets his due. That would really piss us off.
But you know what this is very similar to? It's similar to Jack Butler, who
Yep.
played for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 50s and 60s. And I know
And what position was Jack Butler?
he was a defensive back.
So our audience.
And I'm a very close friend with his son, Tim Butler,
Okay.
who grew up in Pittsburgh, best friends with Mike McCarthy, who grew up in Pittsburgh. And I remember telling our father, I said, Dad, what do you think about Jack Butler? And he said, Jack Butler was one of the greatest football players of all time. And I said, I know, but it took Jack Butler 35 years to get in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I hope this doesn't happen. And I've told you guys before, I've met Joe Klecko twice, and every time I've met him, I shook his hand. I said, you belong in the Hall of Fame before Howie Long belongs in the Hall of Fame. And you know what he did? He just chuckled and kind of shrugged it off, but he goes, there's somebody out there that actually believes that I was a good
There's a lot
football
more than
player.
somebody, but
I
that's
know.
a good story. So
Yep.
Joe Klecko definitely deserves Hall of Fame bound. So
Yep. So listen, on NFL, and we'll come back to it. Let's just touch briefly on college football. It was kind of a slow week,
yeah,
right? Notre Dame
they crushed
played
Bowling Green.
right, which you would expect, but again, Michigan barely beats Iowa.
No, Iowa is a really good team. Now
I'm not saying that
No,
though.
the point is, I'm glad you brought that up, right? So Michigan, obviously, with Harbaugh. I actually think the Harbaugh watch is on now at Michigan. This was a big win for them. Iowa came to the big house. It was a 10-3 final. It was a game they absolutely had to win. However, Iowa is a good team. So I will give Michigan a pass this week. However, the big showdown, here we are, early October. We're probably, I'm going to say, 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away
5-6 weeks.
from Michigan, Ohio State. So the point is, Michigan had high expectations. Jim Harbaugh has not done a good job at Michigan, and it's hard to say because you and I watched him as a quarterback at Michigan.
And I loved them.
Under Bo Schembechler.
Loved them.
Obviously, he had a great, he had a good,
Average career in the
I thought he
NFL.
had a good career in the NFL, and of course he takes the Niners to the Super Bowl, and obviously loses that
To his brother.
to his brother, right? But I think the Harbaugh watch is really on now because I'm telling you now, even before we do our preview of the Michigan Ohio State game,
Which we will.
He's losing this game. He's going to go 0-5. They're not beating Ohio State.
We've said this
I know.
4 weeks ago.
So
I
the
mean,
point
this no
being
surprise.
is, I don't know who the next coach of Michigan's going to be, but it was a big win for them. Iowa's a good team. That's a tough big game.
Well, we know who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Brady Hoke coming back,
Yeah.
that kind of crap.
No, absolutely.
It could be Urban Meyer for crying out loud.
No, Urban.
I'm throwing that out as
But
a
it's
joke.
funny you mention that because Urban was actually asked on Urban's doing TV, I think for Fox or something.
Yes, he is.
He's like, there ain't no chance that's happening.
Of course, that would be like Woody Hayes taking over
No,
for both.
exactly.
I'm joking. About
I know you are, but
I mean, that kind of caliber coach. It's not going to be, even if the Cowboys don't get Lincoln Riley, which I think is probably going to happen next year.
it's a good call because I want Lincoln Riley.
Right. But if the Cowboys decide to stick with Garrett, which I don't think they will, then I wouldn't be surprised that Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, we're getting
takes
ahead
over.
of ourselves, but
Exactly.
the point is,
Right.
So outside on college football, Clemson had a bye week. They
Yeah,
had
there wasn't much going on.
right, the number one team, Georgia, won. Alabama won.
But you know what a lot of people don't think
Oklahoma
was,
won.
dismiss it as an upset? Florida?
Oh,
beating
wait.
Auburn?
You know what? That's actually a good point. So actually on the Pick Dog show with Mitch, and again, you can find Mitch at pickdogs.com. Mitch was all in on Auburn, and he actually convinced me. So also for that game, for Auburn, Florida, but Mitch, and when discussing this with him, he thinks Dan Mullen is an overrated college coach, and I said, are you out of your mind? Dan Mullen was the offensive coordinator for Urban Meyer at Florida during the Tim Tebow years. So that's 2 national champions.
And
goes to Mississippi State, a perennial loser.
Right.
And I'll let you talk, right?
But he beats Auburn with his second string freshman quarterback.
Who played great.
Played great.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know what that SEC stuff is like.
Totally.
This is that's warfare. It's warfare.
I said a few weeks ago on the show, I said, Florida will be relevant. I don't believe they'll be national champion or playoff contention, but they'll be in a top-tier bowl. But you watch out for Florida. I'm telling you, in about 2 years, they'll be back in the equation of a top 4 playoff.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was probably the big marquee game of the college weekend this
Yep.
weekend.
And listen, just before we wrap up football real quick, and again, let's throw our other sponsor in there, Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, because they've been as loyal as you could possibly be to a show. We're high school football fans as well, right?
Of course.
And we brought up that our beloved St. Joe's lost to a powerhouse, St. Francis from
St.
Maryland
Joseph's
last
of
week.
Montvale.
And
yes.
they came back this week, and they played Paramus Catholic, who, on all accounts wasn't, on that kind of a level.
All right, they're taking a step back in the last couple.
But I watched the game, and the quarterback for Paramus Catholic was outstanding. Threw the ball very well, kept the game close. It was 21-14. But I did notice one thing. There was this player. He was the left tackle on the offensive line for Paramus Catholic. One of the biggest high school football players I've ever seen. And Steve and I have been to 1,000 high school football games. This guy, he had to be 6'8", 350.
Okay.
And
Well, I would imagine all the big boys are looking at him.
he's going to Penn State already, believe me. He was
Coach
on
Franklin
there.
of Penn State has corralled them, huh?
And this isn't Tootie Robbins' offensive lineman.
Our standard bearer of
This guy,
overweight, overrated
No.
lineman.
and I watched him play all game. He is a superstar to be
Good.
to be had, and he will be. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, 'cause,
Okay.
but
So look him up. We'll look him up on him.
what a football player.
Okay, good.
So, with that in mind, that leads us into next week, right? St. Joe's plays Paramus Catholic. They play St. Francis. They play out in California.
Paul, right.
And then you think they're going to come home and play these cupcakes, and they don't.
Now they're playing the marquee game. The biggest rivalry at St. Joe's is Bergen.
One of the biggest rivalries in New Jersey.
St. Joe's Montvale versus Bergen Catholic.
We got to go to their place to
Yep.
play them this week.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, if they play the way that they did and barely beat Paramus Catholic,
Well, I think
It could
Coach
be a long day.
August Hoffman is telling the St. Joe's Green Knights that
Well,
they absolutely better step up their game. 'Cause
we never have to dispute with what Coach Hoffman has to say. But,
Sure.
to get these kids motivated to play
Yeah.
that game.
yeah,
Steve and I played in, how many, 12 Paramus, 12 Bergen Catholic St. Joe's games as freshmen, right?
right.
I played in 4, you played in a few, I played in the state
They
playoff.
hate us as much as we hate them, but at the end of the day, you shake hands, and you know what? When you grow up and you're in the parking lot, you get this.
You respect the rivalry.
You respect the rivalry, absolutely. And let's finish on high school football. My boy Charles DePrima, who I coached in Oakland, is the quarterback of Ramapo High School. So for public, I just wanted to touch on the fact Ramapo is 5-0. Charles is doing really great as his first year starting as a junior, and Ramapo just won a real tight game against Riverdale, 21-19. And look for Ramapo. They went 13-0 last year, won the state championship, and Ramapo was really, from a public standpoint, they're off to a great start. 18-game win streak. So
And I will tell you this, you brought that
Charles,
up.
Charles, congratulations on your start. Keep it up.
Yeah, I saw him on News 12 New Jersey, Friday Night Football, and it was awesome.
Yeah, good.
And that was after they beat Old Japan,
Yeah.
I think.
And
And
Old Japan was ranked higher earlier in the season. They took it on the chin.
they blew him out.
And they killed them.
They blew 'em out.
So watch out for Ramapo on the public side, and for your local high school guys, St. Joe's Bergen is always a marquee matchup. And
You
a
bet.
Great game. So
And check your local papers because it should be advertised
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's not just New Jersey. This
right.
is national
But if you're going to the
football.
game at Bergen, be conscious of parking. Parking is at a premium. for
Right,
that.
get there
So,
3 days early.
Yeah, get there Thursday.
Right. All right, so listen, let's just wrap up real quick with some Major League Baseball
Sure.
updates. So Steve, you give us some updates on what's going
Well,
on.
actually, right before we went to air tonight, the St. Louis Cardinals just tied up the Braves on a sac fly. Cardinals were down to the Braves, and then they battled back. So
That's a great series.
oh, they had two prominent franchises. I love. The game was at St. Louis. That's such a great baseball atmosphere.
It really is.
It really is. Love the Cardinals uniforms, the white and the bright red. Love that. However, the Cards just tied up the Braves 2-2, so that series is tied, and that will
Yep.
obviously go to Game 5.
Yep.
What else? The Dodgers are playing the Nationals right now. Dodgers are up 2-1 in that series.
I can't see them losing that series.
I don't
no,
either.
I mean,
I would imagine that they.
and I'm not dismissing the Nationals. I'm just
No.
saying the Dodgers are loaded and they got some really good pitching.
high
and-
expectations because that's they better get to the World Series because I predicted them to get to the World Series.
Yep. Yep.
And then the Houston Astros were up 2-0, and today Tampa came back and scored 10.
They'll wrap it up tomorrow.
10-3, yeah, that's a foregone conclusion. I think we're safe to say. So,
Yep.
so Houston is up 2-1, and then we're broadcasting now in about an hour. Our beloved New York Yankees travel to Minnesota, which is nice that they're actually playing outdoors in Minnesota. I'm not a dome guy for baseball, to be honest. I get why there's dome stadiums, but we're baseball purists. So I like the fact that the Yanks are out in Minnesota. Luis Severino, obviously, has been on the shelf all year. He's had a couple starts, and he's going on the mound tonight. Are the Yankees going to sweep? Would I be surprised tonight if they lost? No. I'm
No.
expecting Severino to pitch well.
Okay.
If he doesn't, hey, you throw him a game. And I expect even if the Yankees lose 2 out there and they come back to the stadium, I'm fully confident they'll advance. So my predictions for baseball, I like the Dodgers and the Houston Astros. And when I tell you on this show, we love the New York Yankees, we love the New
Well,
York
no,
Yankees.
it'll be the Yankees in Houston and Dodgers and
Yeah.
St. Louis or
I'm gonna
whatever.
so I'm gonna go Dodgers, St. Louis, right? And I like the Yankees, Houston, and I like Houston and the Dodgers in
All
the
right.
World Series, and I like Houston to win it all. That's my prediction.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, because I love this young talent, I love Acuna and all this stuff.
What do you love about Acuna? The fact that he's like Robinson Cano, and now he just has his second. And listen, this kid's talented. Don't get me wrong. But I cannot stand this lack of hustle crap. And he just got called out in game one by his manager, by his teammate, by his everybody.
I get that part.
So that gives me just a tad. The guy's super talented, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to mention that. Don't be a dog, Acuna.
I agree with you on that front, but I just really like their overall talent. And I'm not going to be surprised if the Braves knock off the Cardinals and play the Dodgers. I don't think they could beat the Dodgers. Just like I don't think anybody can beat the Houston Astros, including the Yankees.
That's my prediction, too.
So. Anyway, so we'll keep you guys posted on Major League Baseball going forward.
Yep.
Can't wait to get to the championship series in both the American and National League and so forth. And
October, it means playoff baseball, no doubt.
Yep. So listen, let's do something real quick. Our notable passings, and you know what? And I'm going to bring this up because it's not only a local thing. Everybody knows who Bill Parcells is and so forth. But
I've heard of him.
And his brother,
Doug
was a very prominent coach and athletic director in the town of Oradell and so forth.
Riverdale.
He was the public address announcer for Ramsey High School, and he was the gym teacher of my daughters.
Oh, good.
So Doug passed away this past week.
Oh, he did?
He did pass away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But if you saw him and you talked to him, which I did 100 times, some people think Steve and I have very similar mannerisms and voice. Nothing like the Parcells. It was uncanny.
Really?
You know? But I just wanted to acknowledge his passing. He was a very nice guy.
Oh, absolutely. My condolences. You know, obviously you met him, and
I met him 100 times.
You had a little more with him, but in my background, whatever, high school sports, this, that, and the other thing, Doug Parcells was always like a name that was associated with high school sports.
Yes, he was.
And a great ambassador, and then, that's a notable passing. So
it sure was.
R.I.P. Doug Parcells.
Yep.
There should be some fields named after him going forward.
I'm sure in Oradell or somewhere there is, because he was that prominent in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Good. That's good.
So anyway, and listen, before we sign off, Steve and I like to do a shout out, and we mentioned Mike Garvey today, and some of our fans, and Kenny Backard's been a loyal listener for us. But we just wanted to wish Nunzio Campanelli the best of luck taking over the Rutgers program. And I hope this isn't hope they remove that interim tag, because we talked about this weeks ago and a lot of people dismissed me, and I said, he didn't lead Bergen Catholic, one of the most prominent high school programs in the nation, to be a running backs or tight ends coach or whatever they wanted to call him.
Yeah.
And now he's the head coach, and we just wanted to wish him the best of luck, because he's a class act, and he's a quality football coach, and he certainly can attract talent to Rutgers, because they're in some hard times now.
I would like to say a few things about that. So I actually have the fortune to coach Nunzio's son, Michael. So I'm a coach for 12 and 13, 7th, 8th grade, et cetera, right? But Nunzio is always at the field, and I think it's well deserved. So he left Bergen, he became the running backs coach, got promoted to tight ends coach, and now Chris Ash got fired. But he just lost his debut, 48-7 to Maryland. But you know what? I think Nunzio, if Rutgers gives him the chance, he is the pipeline to the North Jersey talent.
And I hope they give him the chance.
Right, so I want to just wish him the best of luck. I really think Rutgers would be remiss if they don't give him past this year. So he now has 7 games left, and to his credit, he benched his starting quarterback for Johnny Langen, who's a Bergen Catholic kid that he coached in high school. And I think he's going to, give Johnny Langen, the keys, and we'll see what happens. So good luck, Nuns, and, we appreciate you listening to the show.
Yep.
And we'll see you at a Rutgers game soon.
All right, guys. So listen, full week of sports, and I'm glad you guys could join us, and we look forward to doing a show next week and you guys filling us in.
And, of course, want to thank our sponsors, and our last one obviously is Di Filippi's Bakery up in Monticello, New York. And when you're in the Catskills, it's the best baked goods you're going to find. Sweets, just ask for Carmela. And Carmela and Di Filippi's, thank you so much for sponsoring our show.
Thank you.
Okay, so once again, if anybody has a question, a comment, you agree, you disagree, please send us an email at sportswithmono, M-O-N-O, and mono, M-O-N-O, at gmail.com. And we'll catch up to you on the next show, and everybody have a great week.
Listen, it won't be any lighter in sports than it is right now, so we look forward to getting on the air and talking to you and look forward to your
It's
feedback.
the most wonderful time. We got baseball, we got NFL, we got
College football, it's high school.
hockey started, and we'll talk about my beloved and our beloved New York Rangers next week. Let
We'll
them get a
get
couple
there.
more games under their belt.
A little early. We got 9 months before we even have to talk
And
to
we're
the
enjoying
playoffs.
our sabbatical before the NBA starts, and we have to talk about that.
Yeah. That won't be on next week's show, I can assure you. All right,
So
thanks for joining us,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good day.
Talk to you next week.
Thanks. Bye.